What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTP Sports. And my God, this Flyers team makes no goddamn sense in the world. I'm gonna be honest with you; they make little sense in my personal opinion. They just do. After what we saw, well, actually, what we didn't see on Monday, because that game was ugh, ugh, ugh. I want to forget that game. Honestly, I did forget that game because that game was just so nothing. That was just so nothing. The way they played in Tampa, they just didn't show up. It was ugly. It was ugly. And then you come in tonight against Florida, looking to bounce back. You fall down 2-0. You're heavily getting outplayed in the first period again, which is a very common theme with this team. Dan Vladar is keeping them in the game, as he usually does. And then they find a way to come back. You know, just two random shots from the point from Emil Andre get way through traffic, and you tie the game. One of the goals was by Andre, the other was deflected by Matvei Michkov. Always nice to see that. And then a third period where the Flyers looked like they got, it was a little bit back and forth. Florida had a late power play with like 7 minutes to go. Very bad penalty to take by Bobby Brink there. They kill it off. The penalty kill still remains very good. And Flyers control it in the Florida zone with under a minute to go. And it looked like this was an extended shift by the Cates, Foester, and connecting line. It looked like they were out there for a little bit. It kind of looked like they were getting tired too, but they were out there on the ice, and they had some possession there in the offensive zone, in Florida's zone. And Tyson Foester, point blank on the right circle, takes the initial shot. In my personal opinion, I think he committed murder because freaking Aaron Ekblad went down in a heap after blocking the first shot. But luck for Foester, the puck comes right back to him, and then he just rips it by Bobrovsky to give the Flyers a 3-2 lead with like 40 seconds left in the game. And then you think, okay, next faceoff, Florida's probably going to come out hard. They're going to try to pull the goaltender, get the extra attacker. It's going to be a very stressful final 40 seconds. No, this is probably the best shift that I've seen Sean Couturier take in goddamn months, goddamn weeks. It was Couturier, it was Dvorak, and I forget who else it was. But these guys kept it in the Florida zone. They were attacking, they were forechecking, and then it turned out into another goal by a shot from the point that gets deflected in by Sean Couturier to give you a 4-2 lead. I'm like, where did that come from? Where did that spurt come from? And seriously, what a hell of a shift to even end the game there to get it to a 4-2 lead. I was not expecting that. But good on you. Good on you. And this is during a game, too, where this was during the second period where the Flyers were on a penalty kill. And I'm seeing Christian Dvorak get a fucking breakaway. And this dude's passing it behind him. And you think that was stupid. The guy that he passes to was Sean Couturier. And Sean Couturier decides to pass it back. He decides to pass it back. Doesn't even pass it back to Dvorak, who's at the net. Dvorak's over here on the corner. He's passing it to the corner. What is this game? What is this team? That didn't make sense. That was the dumbest, idiotic thing I could ever think of. Yet they won. It's like, there's so many moments in these games where this team just gives me an absolute headache, and they're so annoying to watch. And then they have a stretch where they did what they did in the final minute of the game. It's just like, what? Like, where did that come from? Emil Andre had a rough first period. He responded to that in the second period with the two shots on net that resulted in goals. So good on him. But Dan, once again, this is a reason the Flyers would not have been in this game if it wasn't for Dan Vladar. Dan Vladar was sensational once again. And the Flyers did give up like 15 shots in that first period. I think they held Florida to they held them to 12 shots the rest of the game. 5 in the second period, 7 in the third period. So they definitely hampered it down defensively and limited the chances by Florida, which was definitely a very good adjustment by the team. But it's just like, this team cannot score the first goal for the life of them. My God, this team goes down constantly. They always allow the first goal. It's always 1-0. It's always either 2-0, and then this team always has to fight back. But somehow this team always fights back. They're one of the best teams in terms of the NHL in wins when allowing the first goal, which makes sense because they always allow the first goal. The Flyers rarely score the first goal, which is, that would be a nice gift if that could happen every once in a while. But they like to allow the first goal. That's just the way it goes with this team, I guess. And they find a way to respond. It's definitely crazy. It's definitely weird. It really is weird. So, it's a good response win after a basically a no-show in Tampa Bay because that game was just completely nothing. The you guys just couldn't do anything in that entire game. That game was so blah. Not even like it's like just nothing. You couldn't do anything in that game. It's insane. And Frank, Ersson started in that game, and Ersson was fine. Ersson wasn't the reason why you even lost the game. Ersson even kept you involved in the game. You just could not do anything offensively in that game whatsoever. My God. And you were allowing odd-man rushes after odd-man rushes after odd-man rushes. They couldn't handle Tampa Bay's speed, even though Tampa Bay had so many guys out of the lineup. It's crazy with injury. And they still kind of overpowered you there. So that was definitely, ugh. But after going down 2-0 tonight, good win. It's a good win. Now you have Thanksgiving tomorrow. Then you have a back-to-back on Friday and Saturday with the red-hot New York Islanders and the New Jersey Devils, who you just faced last Saturday at home with that insane goal barrage that you put on then. So that definitely will be very interesting at that point. I wonder what they're going to do with the goaltenders this weekend if they decide to start Vladar against the Islanders since they've been the more hotter team, and then they go Ersson against the Devils. I'm not entirely sure. But this is definitely like they're finding ways to win. I guess you could say they are finding ways to win, and that is a good sign for this team in terms of like the progression. But like still like there's some things that I don't like about this team. The power play definitely looks like it's taken a major step back. They really can't do much on the power play. The minutes with Matvei Michkov are still an issue in my personal opinion. But they still find ways to win. Michkov does look like he's playing a lot better recently, so that is a very good thing there. And of course, getting the goal today on the deflection from the Emil Andre shot, so that's his 6th goal of the season, so that's very good. Jamie Drysdale had a very solid night. He had 2 points as well there. Tyson Foester with the game-winning goal there. That was just a rip by him. A good screen, too, in front of the net. I believe that was Rodrigo Abels, actually, net front, providing that gigantic screen in front of Bobrovsky. So, hey, good on Foester to keep up with the first shot that he took that was blocked by Ekblad and stay with it to put another shot on net to eventually get one by Bobrovsky. Sometimes when you shoot the puck from out far, good things can happen. When you shoot the puck from the point, sometimes good things can happen. That's what you saw in the 2 Emil Andre plays. They were just, simple, throw the puck on net and see what happens. And both things worked for Andre in that situation. So sometimes you just got to start putting the puck on net more. That's definitely what you got to do. It's definitely what you got to do. In terms of anything else, Dan Vladar just continues to be very good. He stops 25 of 27 shots from the Florida Panthers. He finished today's game with a .926 save percentage, so just continues to be spectacular in that department and just continues and continues and continues to keep this team involved in games and playing fantastic. Numbers are up there with the best in the league and the top goaltenders in the league so far. It's like right now we're just like, okay, when's the ball going to drop on Dan Vladar? Is he going to eventually come back down to earth when he eventually gets to that 30-game plateau? Because we all know he hasn't, got surpassed 30 games played in a season in his NHL career so far. So, okay, that's going to be the real test for Vladar is his body going to be able to keep up with the workload for an exceeding workload that he just hasn't done to this point in his NHL career. But right now, this is what he is. He's been fantastic. He has simply been fantastic. And I don't know if his full total numbers have updated after today's game. They could have. I'm not entirely sure. So if I look at game logs, no, they have not fully updated after this game. But before today's game, he has a 2.42 goals against and a .912 save percentage. And I'm sure those numbers probably improve after today's game as well. That's just how good he's playing. And he's keeping his team involved every single night. And that's way more than probably what this team expected with Dan Vladar. But it's just like, my God. It's unreal how good he has been. I think it's understated how good he has been because it's crazy. And just comparing some of his numbers to the top goaltenders in the league. So if I look at Dan Vladar, so obviously, like I said, I don't think his numbers have been fully updated yet. And let me see. Where do I see Dan Vladar? Dan Vladar. Here we go. Here we go. In terms of overall save percentage, he ranks 18th in the NHL. So actually, let me filter this by a certain amount of games played. So how many games played does Vladar have? Where is he? He's played 13 games so far. So let me try to do it with a minimum of let's see. Games played. Let's adjust that to like a minimum of 10 games played. So we can do that there. So let me apply that. Hopefully that's, you know, that's okay. So that did not adjust. That was dumb. For some reason, it wouldn't let me apply the filter. Yeah, games played. Okay, there we go. So in terms of games played, it still did not update. It still did not update. Come on, NHL.com. Just let me do what I want to do here. There we go. There we go. 10 games. Never mind. It's still not doing it. Still not doing it. Can I please? There. Can I do? Oh my god. Let me. There we go. There we go. 10 games played. That's what I wanted to see. So with goaltenders with a minimum of 10 games played, he ranks 7th in terms of save percentage, behind Logan Thompson, who he's tied with at 912 save percentage. Yaroslav Askarov, he has a 913. Connor Hellbuck has a 913. Vasilevsky has a 913. Scott Wedgwood of Colorado has a 918. And then Spencer Knight, who has been very good for Chicago this year, has a 924. And in terms of goals against, he's 6th in the league in terms of goals. Yeah, 6th in the league goals against with 242. Behind Spencer Knight with a 238. Vasilevsky with a 236. Darcy Kemper with a 230. Logan Thompson with a 216. And a Scott Wedgwood with a 209. So he's up there. He's definitely up there in the league in terms of goaltending statistics. It's very good. It's very good. And he is probably one of the main reasons why the Flyers are even in the position that they are right now. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy how good he has been. So, good win. It's a good overall win by this team. And now with their record on the season, so if we adjust it after today's game, I'm assuming it is adjusted after today's game. Hopefully NHL.com did that properly, but knowing my luck, they did not. Yes, they did update it. So after 22 games, the Flyers are 12-7-3. That is 27 points on the season. They're now in the second wild card spot, even though there's still so much parity within the Eastern Conference. Because, like, there's so many teams that are just barely separated in points. Like, if you go down from the Flyers between the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are the 8th-ranked team in the Eastern Conference, it's only been separated by 2 points. Crazy. And even if you look at Buffalo, it's only separated by 5 points. And with the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are in last place in the Eastern Conference, which is very shocking to say, it's separated by 6 points. There is so much parity in this league, it's not even funny. And then if you look at the teams that are even above the Flyers in, like, the Metropolitan Division, they're behind the Islanders by 1 point. They're behind the Carolina Hurricanes by 3 points. They're behind the Devils by 4 points. So it's crazy. It definitely is crazy. The Islanders have been hot though. They're 7-3-0 in their last 10 games. They've been 500. It looks like at home, but they've been very good on the road. So who knows? Who knows? But we have seen the Islanders before that the Flyers won that game in a shootout. But Flyers and Islanders games, they're always weird. They are always weird. It's crazy, don't you think? Crazy. Let's see what else is there. What else is there that is very, 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 very interesting? There's been a lot of talks about, I believe it comes from, this is also another topic from Frank Saravalli, in terms of, like, teams around the league, in terms of, like, teams that are probably looking to trade off assets. And one team, obviously, that comes up a lot is the Vancouver Canucks, just where they are at right now, because things are not going well for Vancouver, obviously. Vancouver, they are the 3rd worst team in the NHL at 9-12-2, and they could possibly look to be selling off some of their assets on their team. And obviously, a number one name that always comes up with the Vancouver Canucks is Quinn Hughes, because his contract expires after next season. He'll be a UFA. And, of course, all the talks about him possibly wanting to go play with his brothers with the Devils. But, Frank Saravalli also brings up a possibility of the Flyers being very interested in a guy like Quinn Hughes, just because of the connection with Quinn Hughes to Rick Tocchet and all that stuff. The guys on Snow the Goalie always bring up that, Trevor Zegras is very good friends with Quinn Hughes, so there's a good connection there as well. That would if the Flyers were to go after a guy like Quinn Hughes, that would definitely solve the number one defenseman issue, because that would completely change the dynamic of the defense for the Flyers. That would completely change the dynamic of this team in general. And granted, it would take a lot to get Quinn Hughes, so I don't know what the Flyers would be giving up in that instance. I know some people out there on Flyers Twitter are like, you're going to have to give up Mitchkov, or you're going to have to give up Martone, or blah, 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 blah. That's not my job to figure out. That's not my job to figure out. If the trade involves either one of Mitchkov or Martone, I am not doing that trade whatsoever, because you would be costing your future at that point, in my personal opinion. I'm not saying wait till free agency for a Quinn Hughes, but I also do think at the same time Vancouver might not even have the leverage at that point, so maybe you can fool them. I'm not entirely sure. But that's for Danny Briere and Keith Jones, dude. That's not my entire job right there. But yeah, that would be a huge get for this team if they were obviously very interested in Quinn Hughes, because that would change so much. Of course, Quinn Hughes has the connection to Rick Tocchet. He boasted about him when, Tocchet left Vancouver and all that stuff. Quinn Hughes won a Norris when Rick Tocchet was his head coach. He was one of the best defensemen in the league under Rick Tocchet. So there's definitely, the connection there, obviously. And, coming to the East Coast, you're closer to home, you're closer to your brothers. So, yeah, you could definitely convince him to re-sign here. So it's definitely, I guess you could say, would it be worth the risk to go after a Quinn Hughes and try to convince him to extend here, even though you do run the risk of him possibly testing the UFA market after next season? Obviously. And I know there's still all those talks about the Flyers looking at a center. Keep saying depth center, even though I don't think a depth center is really going to help this team. They need to get a good center. Another third, fourth line caliber center really isn't going to help this team. It just isn't. But I guess depth is just anything at this point. They just need center depth. They need centers. It's crazy. I also, in terms of Nikita Grabenkin finally got back into the lineup tonight. To start, baby steps, but I wouldn't be shocked if he gets benched in one of the other games coming up, whether that's in one of these games in the back-to-back for most likely Nick Delorier. Honest to God, I would consider giving Garnet Hathaway a day off, or two, because he just does not look good out there. He is not, even though he's not going to be a barn burner offensively, that's not what I'm saying, but the dude in every game so far this season has not registered a single point, and he's almost -10. I understand he kills penalties and all that stuff, but the dude looks like, right now, a complete shell of himself. He just does not look good out there. And I'd rather have a young guy out there that could show some potential, show some flashes, than, at this point, a Garnet Hathaway that's most likely in decline. That's just my 2 cents on that. Completely my 2 cents on that. But that also goes back to the fact that this team needs to make moves. They need to make moves. They do. If they do want to take a next step and they do want to keep progressing and towards, getting to the playoffs and all that stuff, they can't, sit on their hands. They're eventually going to have to improve this team. They eventually are, if that's what their goal for this year is. Regardless of how people feel, regardless of how the fans feel, regardless of how I feel. Because, yeah, if this team was in a prime chance to get another top pick, try to get into the lottery once again, I wouldn't mind it. Yes, I want playoff hockey as much as the next person, but, with the team as is, if they make the playoffs, they ain't doing anything in the playoffs, even though I wouldn't expect them to do anything in the playoffs to begin with. But if you can make some savvy trades, if you can find a way to improve the roster at hand, and while still infusing the roster with young talent, then it's something that I can see a vision for. It's something that I could still see a light at the end of the tunnel and see how this thing is going to progress. You keep boasting about the cap space. We keep boasting about the cap space over the next few years. We all know that free agency is basically non-existent because no player hits free agency at this point. We all know how big this free agency year was supposed to be, and then obviously that went kaput when everybody extended their contracts. You're going to have to mess around with the trade market, especially if you're not going to put yourself into a position to draft high. You got to mess around with the trade market. You have assets on your team. You have a boatload of wingers that are not going to fit on this roster. You're going to have to, make a decision on somebody that you might be uncomfortable trying to trade. There's going to be guys that are expendable. You got wingers down in the prospect system that are eventually going to have to be on the NHL roster, like eventually a Porter Martone after this college season. Eventually, Alex Bump might make the roster, or even a guy like a Denver Barkey or something like that. So those are decisions that you're going to have to make. Whether it's trading somebody off the roster like an Owen Tippett, whether it's trading somebody off the roster like a Bobby Brink or something like that. Because I do think, in terms of the wings, that they don't want to trade. Obviously, they don't want to trade Michkov. They're not going to trade Zegras because at this point they're playing Zegras more as a wing than a center, which I still don't agree with. Obviously, they don't want to trade Tyson Foester, and obviously they're not going to trade a guy like a Porter Martone. That just isn't going to happen. So, and they're not going to be able to trade Travis Konechny just because of the no movement clause in his contract. So it just isn't going to happen. It's not going to happen. So if you look at the guys that are more expendable on the roster, Owen Tippett and a Bobby Brink might be those guys. So you're going to have to get uncomfortable. And that I'm sure that Toronto draft pick in 2027, the first round pick, might be enticing to some teams, even though it is top 10 protected because of the way Toronto was going this year. So you never know what they're going to be like next year if players want out or they're eventually going to have to hit the reset button. So maybe that pick is really enticing. It's decisions that this team has to make if they want to progress. If they want to progress even more. So they're going to have to take some risks. You look at a team like Vancouver. You look at Buffalo because, Buffalo's never going to figure it out at this point. They're just not. Do you take a risk on do you ask him for a Tage Thompson or something like that? Do you try to ask him about Rasmus Dahlin if Rasmus Dahlin wants out? Or do you go to Vancouver out, ask for a Quinn Hughes and see what the price is? You're going to have to take those risks. You're going to have to look for centers. You're going to have to look for defensemen. That's the only way you're going to improve this team. Really, it just is. So, it's interesting. It's interesting when you think about it. But let's go to the Anytime Hotline. We do have a voicemail here from Sean. So let's see what Sean's got to say.
The Flyers with an offensive explosion tonight, 4 goals, wow. But that's a well-deserved win. I mean, they took it to the Panthers in the third period and deserved this win. I mean, they got some bad puck luck throughout the third, but finally caught a break, and Foester took advantage of it. What more can you say about Dan Vladar? He's the team MVP this year by far. I mean, he keeps the team in the game when he's getting peppered early, makes saves late, allows the Flyers to come back and win. And hopefully, Emil Andre has secured a spot on the defense corps. No more of this play 2 games, go back down crap. I mean, the kid played well. The kid is involved. He creates. He gets pucks to the net. Not the biggest guy, but you notice him out there. Him and Drysdale did a good job. That's a nice way to lead into Thanksgiving. Hopefully the Eagles don't ruin my Black Friday, but that's another story. But a nice bounce-back win for the Flyers after the dud of a game they played against Tampa before.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully the Eagles don't ruin anything on Black Friday. Jesus Christ, I don't even want to think about that right now. But yeah, Emil Andre definitely has. He's long deserved the shot to play on the roster for this year. I didn't agree when they sent him down. I didn't agree when they chose to start guys like Jaeger Zamula and all that stuff over him. But yeah, Emil Andre definitely has played himself into more of a role here, and I do like what he brings with guys like Jamie Drysdale. Those guys look like they have some type of chemistry out there. They look like they're playing sound. They look like they're playing sharp. They have something out there to build. Andre plays a very solid game. And I know a lot of the analytics people love him as well, and I think he does pass the eye test to some extent. It's one of those things where you're in a rebuild. You probably should be playing the younger players over guys that we already know what they are. We already know what a guy like Jaeger Zamula is. Zamula stinks. Zamula should not be in the lineup consistently. Juleson has been playing fine, and I think Juleson has been fine in the lineup, so I don't mind him in a bottom 6 role. Honest to God, I prefer him over Nick Seeler at this point, but that's another discussion for another day. But yeah, those guys have been playing fine. But yeah, Andre definitely has deserved the chance for a little bit here to stay on the roster. It's just annoying when they constantly flip-flop them. Hopefully that's done in that instance. Hopefully it is. I really hope so, because they would have to make a decision on the blue line to get rid of somebody. Cough, cough, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Just cut Jaeger Zamula. He ain't doing shit. The guy stinks. So, it's crazy. It's crazy. Sometimes why this team frustrates me. Just because you're in the rebuild. Not playing the young players as much. Not giving them Like if I just like some of the other things that annoys me. Just to not go fully off topic and get fully sidetracked. Let me look at Match because that's been a very big topic of discussion. Matvey Michkov's ice time. Matvey Michkov, he played the fourth fewest time on ice. Fourth fewest of the team. Played 12 minutes. 12 minutes and 13 seconds. Who played the most? Connecting at the most ice time at 18 minutes. Zegras, Cates, Foester, Dvorak, Tippett. So, it's not like he's giving Couturier, Bokalor the ice time. Michkov did get a goal. But I would think, for a guy that's supposed to be the face of your franchise, you would like to get him more minutes. And I understand they were on the penalty kill a little bit today. That's definitely going to dock some minutes from Michkov. But it still just does feel like that Taka doesn't put him in situations that you probably should. You know what I mean? If you want to try to maximize the offensive potential of your team, Michkov does need to get a lot of ice time, in my personal opinion. I just think that should be the case. And realistically, the line with him, Bobby Brink, and Couturier, they just haven't worked for a little bit. You got to shake something up there. I still think Michkov played his best hockey when he was with Trevor Zegras in terms of an offensive production standpoint. I would like to try that. I don't understand why they gave up on Zegras as a center so early. Granted, most people around the league don't think he's a center, but, what do you have left to lose? What do you have to lose by testing out Zegras at center? You barely tested him out there. You've been using him more as a winger than a center. So, that's something that I gripe with a little bit there in terms of that. But, yeah, still a good win. Still a good win by this team. So, we'll see where it goes. So now with the terms of the schedule, like I said, they play Black Friday and on Saturday with a back-to-back on the road with the Islanders and the New Jersey Devils. So it'll be Eagles, Bears, and Flyers, Islanders, even nobody will be paying attention to the Flyers, Islanders at this point with the Eagles game. So that'll be very interesting. So in terms of a recap of that, we'll probably recap it after the Devils game because the Eagles will get the priority. And then next week starts their very long homestand, the 6-game homestand to start December. With the Pittsburgh Penguins on the 1st, Buffalo on the 3rd, then Sunday at 1 o'clock against the Colorado Avalanche on the 7th, the 9th against the San Jose Sharks, the 11th against the Vegas Golden Knights, and then the 13th against the Carolina Hurricanes in December. Then they go on a very long road stand with like one random home game mixed in there to end the month of December. And then you go to the rest of the schedule, obviously with the Olympic break and all that stuff in February and everything there. So yeah. Granted, they always talk about what a team can look like, what you can really tell what a team is by American Thanksgiving. I really think that type of thing, right, that like how you judge if a team can make the playoffs around American Thanksgiving, that's when you could really tell who maybe the playoff teams are. I think just because there's so much parity in the Eastern Conference, I really don't think that's going to matter because there's just no separation whatsoever. There really just isn't. There's not like one clear-cut, concise thing there. So it's probably going to have to wait a little bit longer until you have that real determination just because of the parity, because there's no separation at all. None. So we'll see. Maybe you could say by the Olympic break, that's when you could really gauge who the playoff teams are. Maybe that could be a good judge. Maybe. That's another discussion for another day. That's a couple of months away at this point. So who knows? But that'll do it for tonight, everybody. I appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. So don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It does me a great deal of service. And also use the code TTPSPORTS, $20 off your first purchase at SEATGEEK. It's a great deal. Don't pass it up. Hopefully everybody tomorrow enjoys their Thanksgiving holiday, however you choose to celebrate that, whether it's just by yourself with your family, you travel to go see loved ones or anything like that. Hopefully you all enjoy the day with a lot of food and all that stuff, enjoying football or enjoying just quality time with the family. Hopefully you guys do enjoy that, and I hope you guys have a very happy Thanksgiving. And then we'll reconvene after Eagles-Bears on Black Friday. That's when we'll reconvene here. But for now, happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and I'll see you after.